phase, industrial and commercial electrical done right. This is Casey Hendrickson on News Talk 95.3, Michiana's News Channel, your breaking news and weather station.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's News Channel. I'm your host, Casey Hendrickson. Do want to thank R&B Car Company. If you're looking for a used vehicle, go to rbcarcompany.com. All right. We've got to touch and then talk. And so that came out as touch about the virus. There's just a couple of interesting stories out there that I kind of wanted to pass on to all of you. Not going to devote a whole bunch of time to it. There's nothing like super breaking about it or anything, but I do want to point out a couple of things because there's some good stuff that has floated about the virus here. Joe, I sent you some video, and I want you to listen to this because this is CNN's medical expert. I think she used to be the one that ran up Planned Parenthood. Don't quote me on that. I think so. Dr. Leana Wen. I think she was the one that was with Planned Parenthood and then got booted from Planned Parenthood because she wasn't woke enough. So anyway, she's the medical analyst, and she basically, look, for all intents and purposes, she said the quiet part out loud is what she did. Joe, go ahead and roll that.
Clear to them that the vaccine is the ticket back to pre-pandemic life. And the window to do that is really narrowing. I mean, you were mentioning, Chris, about how all these states are reopening. They're reopening at 100%. And we have a very narrow window to tie reopening policy to vaccination status. Because otherwise, if everything is reopened, then what's the carrot going to be? How are we going to incentivize people to actually get the vaccine? So that's why I think the CDC and the Biden administration needs to come out a lot bolder and say, if you're vaccinated, you can do all these things. Here are all these freedoms that you have. Because otherwise, people are going to go out and enjoy these freedoms anyway.
Oh,
it's clear to them that
God forbid. All right, God forbid we enjoy the freedoms that we already have anyway. Hey, guess what? I'm actually pretty psyched that Joe was able to get that out to you because the video link that I sent to Joe earlier has now been removed, and I sent it to him like 10 minutes ago. Kind of weird how they're running around removing that video. So if people don't get the vaccine, what's the carrot that we're going to be able to dangle in front of them to force them to get the vaccine in order to enjoy their freedoms? Because if they don't get the vaccine and we reopen anyway, they're just going to go out and enjoy those freedoms by themselves. Like Americans. I've been telling everybody, and we had a couple of people on the live stream even today, just, say, hey, we've started. If you have not read 1984, if you've not listened to 1984 in an audiobook, if you have not listened to the dramatized version of 1984 on YouTube, you must. You have to. And again, part of the reason of why something that Orwell wrote so long ago is so profound now and why it applies so perfectly now. As I have told you countless times, the communist playbook has been exactly the same since Lenin. It has never changed. The communist playbook that was used by Lenin and other groups during the Russian Revolution was used by Castro in Cuba. It was used by Mao in China. It was used in Vietnam. It was used in North Korea. It was used everywhere. It is the exact same playbook. So when somebody tells you to look out for certain things because there's going to be a communist plot to overthrow things, you can say it with accuracy and certainty, and it's timeless because that is always the playbook. As I've told you before, The Naked Communist, written by Cleon Scouse in the 1950s, the 45 communist goals. I have been talking about this since before anybody else in news media or talk radio. I've been talking about my entire career and before. Okay, 45 communist goals were the goals of communists, primarily from the KGB, to change American society. Rules for Radicals, written by Saul Alinsky, is the playbook in how to accomplish the 45 communist goals. And I've highlighted this premium content video that I did a little while back, went over all of them in detail and how they apply to what we're dealing with today. This is critical. But when people look at this stuff, they go, wow, how is How was Orwell so right? Well, Orwell was just warning you about communism. Communism is the same as it's always been. It hasn't changed. The playbook hasn't changed. That's why it's so easy to predict what they're going to do next. That's why people like me, not just me, but like me, have been telling you for many, many years now, when something happens, this is the slope that you're on. And other people just dismissed, it's conspiracy stuff, whatever. I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't a conspiracy in Russia, in China, in North Korea, in Cuba, in Venezuela, and elsewhere. It's never been a conspiracy in any of those places, or it was a conspiracy until it wasn't anymore. The playbook is always the same. It never changes. It is always the same. And one of the reasons that it's always the same is that it works. It just takes time. It's usually not overnight. And with the modern era and things like that, it actually takes longer for it to succeed. This is critical stuff, but she's out there straight up. We should not be allowing places to reopen because then we don't have a carrot to dangle in front of the peasants in order to get them to vaccinate themselves. And as I've said before, you have to make that decision on your own. All right. I've already told you where I stand on the vaccine. And if you are at risk of the virus, I think you should at least consider it. If you're not at risk from the virus, then you have to weigh your potential risk here. And the reality is, for people who are not susceptible to the virus, the younger you get, the more side effects to the vaccine you have. And some of those side effects are not pleasant. Some of them are permanent. Some of them are death. Okay? In much higher numbers than generally we see from a vaccine early on. But it's not in any way, shape, or form the preponderance of people who get it. It's not even a large percentage of people who get it. So you have to weigh that risk yourself. But I'm one of those people that if you're not at risk of something or something's really not that big of a deal for your overall health, I don't really see the point in getting vaccinated for it. That's just my personal philosophy. Other people disagree with that, and that's fine. Okay, everybody has different things that they have to worry about. I'm not at risk of the virus. If I were, my mindset might be a little bit different. And now that we also know that children who get the vaccine have many more serious side effects than adults do, that's something that parents should also consider going forward, because they're going to try and force your kid to get it. Or your kid's not going to be able to get back into school, that sort of thing. So your kid's not going to be able to get in-person instruction. Illegal alien kids who already have COVID will get certified teachers face-to-face giving them classroom instruction. That's just how things are going right now. Now, the other thing that I have to talk about is the CDC, because everybody is picking up on this. The CDC has been a mess since Ebola under Obama. But the CDC there is an extra level of odd, weird stupidity that is coming out of the CDC right now, and people don't really understand what's going on. The question, if we were to summarize this on the whole subject of the CDC right now under Biden, is who is in charge? Because it's not the director of the CDC. She's not in charge. Because every time she says something, the CDC contradicts what she says. So we're trying to figure this out. And I'm going to tell you what I mean coming up. News Talk 95.3, Michiana's news channel.
Casey Hendrickson.
News Talk 95.